Hello, writers. Welcome to your Writer's Tool Shed. We're looking at new tools for this week, week 8. The stone cutter lifted his hammer and tapped a series of precise taps all across the crack in the rotund boulder. He worked carefully. A single blunder and the whole massive stone could release and fall upon the village below. He muttered to himself while he worked, "This one now, just a little. There you go. Easy does it. Carefully make each strike count." As he went, the crack in the stone expanded little by little until there was just a small finger of stone left holding it all together. One last touch, and ding, the slab came loose. The stonecutter smiled in satisfaction. Then he heaved the newly cut limestone onto his back and made his way down the mountain, carrying his precious burden. Our first word, precise, is an adjective meaning exact, following proper form. This hammer has to be precise when striking the nail because it's on such a narrow picture frame. It has to go in exactly the right direction. When you're writing with it, using precise versus accurate. Accurate is more related to hitting the right spot, getting the right answer, whether the answer is accurate or inaccurate. But precise, it has more to do with doing it the right way, like you are using the form that causes it to go the same way over and over. Next one is mutter, a verb, to say something in a low voice that is hard to hear. This guy is listening, but Greg is muttering, and so all his words come out as just sound. When you're writing with it, what's the difference between mutter and whisper? When you mutter, it's usually to yourself. It has the sense of like you're not trying to get anyone to hear you. You're just saying it because you're trying to let it loose. But a whisper is something that you're trying to say to someone else. There's always someone else hearing your whisper. You're just trying to say it to them in a low voice. Expand is a verb to stretch out or open up. And so you can see if when businesses talk about expanding, they're talking about getting bigger, going to different areas and towns. When you're writing with it, expand versus grow. So when you're expanding, you usually have the sense of one thing just increasing in size, like the balloon can expand, or if a piece of bread expands, or the dough expands when it's in the oven. But when you grow, there has to do with more change. So if a tree would grow and it's growing taller, it's growing older, but you wouldn't say that the tree expanded. In fact, expand is almost the opposite of growing there. If the tree expanded, then it's just getting bigger without undergoing any other change. Heave means to pick up something, especially with great force. This guy is heaving a boulder up onto his shoulder. And when you're writing with it, heave versus lift. If you lift the boulder onto your shoulder, then you don't get the same sense of how heavy the boulder is. And so heave is such a great word because it conveys the whole action of struggling, of grunting, of lifting and feeling the weight of it, all in the single word of heave. I love it when you have words that are so specific like that. Burden, a noun, a heavy weight, something that must be carried. This guy has a heavy burden of a massive load of chains that he's got over his shoulder. And when you're writing with it, a burden versus a load, there is a slight difference there. A load is something that is being carried, but it's usually it usually has to do with the proper amount. Like this is the load that should be carried by this wagon. And so it might be heavy, but it's appropriately heavy. Whereas a burden is something that feels too heavy, that you're carrying it and it's weighing you down and you wish you could stop.